She looked me in the eye and said, "I don't owe you an explanation," after skipping our anniversary to stay with her ex. So I locked her out, packed her bags with my own hands, and made sure she never stepped foot in my house again. My name's Liam, I'm 32 years old, and until recently, I genuinely believed I had life all figured out. I had a solid career in the tech industry, a comfortable house I purchased just 2 years back, and a fiancée I had once believed was the woman I'd grow old with. Her name was Ella, and we had been together for 4 years. For most of that time, everything seemed steady. Not perfect, but steady. We had our share of arguments like any normal couple, but none of it ever felt like a deal breaker. Or maybe I just didn't want to see the cracks forming beneath the surface. Maybe I wanted the illusion of stability so badly that I ignored the obvious signs that were staring me in the face. The first red flag came quietly. It wasn't a loud explosion or a screaming match. It was her phone. We used to be so open with each other, swapping playlists, sharing funny memes, checking schedules. There was a time when she'd hand me her phone to read directions or look something up without a second thought. But then, gradually, that changed. I'd glance in her direction while she was texting, and she'd tilt her screen away, subtle at first, then deliberate. I remember asking her about it, just once, not accusing, just curious. She laughed and said, "You're being paranoid." And like a fool, I believed her. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was planning something special for our anniversary, which was just around the corner. We were about to hit our 3rd year as an engaged couple, and I convinced myself she must be working on some big surprise. That delusion shattered last Friday, our anniversary. I woke up expecting at least a happy anniversary text or maybe breakfast together, like we always did, but there was nothing. She wasn't even home. At first, I assumed she'd stepped out to grab coffee or flowers or something cute. I sent a text. No response. Called her straight to voicemail. Hours passed. Morning slid into afternoon, then drifted into evening. That cold, heavy feeling settled in my chest. That gut instinct you can't explain but can't ignore. Something was wrong, and I knew it. I could feel it in my bones. At around 6 p.m., I finally got a text. Not a call, not a FaceTime, just a flat, emotionless text that read, "Hey, won't make it tonight. Something came up. I'll explain later." That was it. No happy anniversary.
No επάλεγη.
Nothing but a dismissive line. I called again, still voicemail. And that's when something inside me shifted. I opened the emergency location sharing app we'd set up together for safety reasons. Something she'd clearly forgotten about. Her location popped up instantly. She wasn't in town. She was 45 minutes away in a different city, at a house I recognized all too well. Her ex's house. The same ex she'd sworn she hadn't spoken to in years. The one who, according to her, was just part of the past. I sat there staring at the little blue dot on the map, feeling like the floor had given out beneath me. My hands went cold. My mouth went dry. I tried to convince myself there had to be a reason, some explanation that would make this all make sense. But deep down, I knew. I knew exactly what was happening. I just didn't want to admit it. When she finally came home around noon the next day, she walked in like nothing had happened. No apology, no guilt, no sense of urgency. Just calm, casual, like she'd been out grocery shopping. I looked at her, my chest burning, and asked, "Where were you? What the hell happened last night?" She barely blinked before saying the words that would end everything between us. "I don't owe you or anyone an explanation." That was it. No excuses, no lies, no effort to sugarcoat it. Just cold dismissal. Like I wasn't her fiancé. Like I meant nothing. And in that moment, everything inside me snapped. I realized that for years, I'd been pouring into a person who wouldn't even offer me the basic courtesy of a conversation. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to fight. I was done. And if she wanted freedom so badly, then I was going to give it to her, completely and permanently. I walked out of the room without a word, grabbed my car keys, and sat in my vehicle parked just around the block. I didn't leave because I was afraid of facing her. I left because I needed to think clearly. I knew if I confronted her then and there, it would become a screaming match. And I refused to let her see me broken. I wasn't broken. I was just finished. That hour in the car was all I needed. I pulled out my laptop, logged into our joint bank account, and transferred every cent that was mine back into my personal savings. She had contributed nothing. The account had been created purely for household expenses. Next, I went to the car loan website. The car she drove was technically under my name. She'd had bad credit when we bought it, and I'd been making all the payments anyway. A few clicks and a formal request were all it took to begin the process of reclaiming that too. Then came the house. My house. She wasn't on the deed. Never had been. She helped with groceries sometimes, but every mortgage payment, every renovation, every bill, that was all me. I called a locksmith. "How soon can you get here?" I asked. "Couple hours," he said. "Perfect," I replied. When I walked back into the house, she was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone without a care in the world. Not even a hint of guilt or shame. I didn't say a word. I walked into the bedroom and pulled out every suitcase, gym bag, and tote she owned. I started packing her things. Not like a maniac, not in anger, methodically, neatly. I folded her clothes, paired her shoes, zipped her jewelry cases. I didn't want her spinning this into some narrative that I trashed her stuff. I gave her nothing to weaponize. After about 30 minutes, she finally noticed. "What are you doing?" she asked, more confused than angry. I didn't stop packing. "Giving you exactly what you asked for. Freedom."
No explanations.
She stood there, stunned. Wait, can we just talk?" I laughed quietly, not out of spite, out of pure irony. "Talk? You made it clear yesterday. You don't owe me anything, remember?" Her face twisted. "Liam, you're being ridiculous. It wasn't what you think." I looked at her, dead calm. "You were at your ex's house on our anniversary. Do I look stupid to you?" She was scrambling now, her voice shaky. "It was just closure. We didn't do anything." I paused. "Closure? You don't get closure 3 years into an engagement. You get closure before you move in, before you accept a ring, before you build a life together." Right then, the locksmith pulled up. I stepped outside, greeted him, and pointed toward the door. "Change everything. Code 2. Ella followed me out. "Are you seriously locking me out of my own home?" I turned to her. "It's not your home. Never was. Check the deed. You were a guest I hoped would stay forever. Turns out you were just passing through." I placed her bags on the curb. Neatly, quietly, no drama. Then closed the door. She just stood there.
No screaming. No crying.
Just silence. Because what could she say? But that wasn't even the end. Inside the house, as the locksmith finished swapping out the locks and resetting the codes, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: stillness. Not emptiness, not grief, but a quiet calm that settled into my bones. It was like someone had been screaming in the background for years and finally, mercifully, shut up. The air felt cleaner. The space felt mine again. I stood there in the hallway, listening to the click of metal against wood, the rotation of a new deadbolt, and for the first time since the night before, I let myself breathe. Really breathe. Outside, she was still there, pacing the sidewalk, her arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes flickering between rage and regret. She was clearly waiting for a meltdown, a fight, something she could hold on to as proof that I was being unreasonable. But I refused to give her that. I wasn't the villain here, and I wasn't going to entertain her script. Eventually, she knocked. Not hard, just one of those hesitant, almost apologetic taps. Like she knew the weight of what she'd done, but still hoped for a way back in. "Liam, come on. We need to talk," she said, her voice softer than I'd heard in months. There was a tremble to it, a hint of that familiar sweetness she used to wear so easily before the distance between us became a canyon. I opened the door just a crack, enough to make eye contact, enough to make my point. "Talk? You had every chance. You chose someone else. Remember that the next time you tell someone you don't owe them an explanation." She opened her mouth, her composure cracking. Look, I made a mistake. Okay? I wasn't thinking straight. It was stupid. I just needed to figure things out. I tilted my head. Figure things out? You don't figure things out by disappearing on your fiancé during your anniversary and running off to your ex's house. That's not figuring things out. That's abandonment. Her eyes began to water. She shook her head, trying to steady her breathing. It didn't mean anything. Panicked. We've been together so long. And I don't know. I just felt overwhelmed. I leaned against the doorframe, folding my arms across my chest. Overwhelmed? You know what people do when they're overwhelmed in a relationship? They talk. They communicate. They don't sneak away to get closure from someone they claimed was out of their life years ago. There was silence. She looked down at the ground, her shoulders heaving slightly. I could tell she was trying not to completely fall apart, but it was too late for that. This wasn't just about a bad decision. It was about a pattern of dishonesty, evasion, and emotional cowardice. And I wasn't going to let her pretend otherwise. Then, just as I expected, she tried the last-ditch plea. Liam, please don't do this. We've built so much together. Don't just throw it all away. I nodded slowly. You're right. We did build something. And you burned it to the ground the second you chose him over me. I handed her a sealed envelope. Inside were documents I'd spent the last hour preparing, formal notice that she was being removed from every shared subscription, the joint phone plan, and that her access to any account under my name was terminated. It was a clean break. Cold? Maybe. Necessary? Absolutely. She flipped through the pages, her fingers trembling slightly. Wow, she whispered. Yeah, I replied. Wow. Then I said the thing that I knew would hit her harder than anything else. By the way, you should probably text your ex. You're gonna need somewhere to sleep tonight. She looked up, eyes wide, like I had just slapped her. Liam, please don't do this. I met her gaze steadily. You already did it to yourself, Ella. And with that, I closed the door. Over the next few days, I got the full story. It didn't take long. Mutual friends started talking. Apparently, this wasn't a one-time slip-up. Ella had been talking to her ex for months, catching up over coffee, chatting casually, pretending it was harmless. I was the idiot who trusted her, who believed her when she said the past was behind her. But the worst part? Her ex wasn't even interested in anything serious. Once he realized that she was willing to blow up her engagement for him, he backed off completely. A week later, I got a long, drawn-out text from her. The kind that looks like it was written and rewritten 100 times. She was sorry. She missed me. She realized too late what she lost. She wanted to go to therapy, work on things, rebuild what we had. She said she'd do anything. I left it on red. She showed me what her version of freedom looked like. I just returned the favor. And that was the day I learned something crucial. That love without loyalty is just a performance. That promises made without integrity are just empty noise. That someone can share your bed, your meals, your memories, and still be a stranger when it matters most. But most importantly, I learned that closure doesn't come from the apology you never get. It comes from choosing yourself after someone else chooses to betray you. So to anyone out there holding onto a relationship where you feel like you're begging for the bare minimum, let go. You deserve more than someone who vanishes when it counts. You deserve more than half love, half truths, and half commitments. Thank you for listening till the end. Hit that subscribe button for more true stories of strength, self-respect, and walking away with your dignity intact.